It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story.
Growing the economy is the #1 mission of this government.
The £1 billion blow to growing the economy and to the Prime Minister's plans to spotlight investment in the UK. The ports company throwing overboard its UK investment plans after government ministers accused a subsidiary of being rogue.
Cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy.
Also tonight, a woman who calmly told police where her murdered parents could be found is jailed for life. 40 more allegations against Mohammed Al Fayed as we hear one woman's appeal to make the investigation international.
Also on Sky News at 10, live from Beirut, we hear the fear that nowhere now in this city is safe. The families searching for their belongings in the rubble after an Israeli strike that killed at least 22. And protecting the peacekeepers, how President Biden joined those telling Israel not to target UN soldiers.
Plus, turning up the lights after last night's spectacular display, why there may be even more to see of the aurora. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. Did loose words from 2 cabinet ministers lose the UK £1 billion in investment? That's the claim tonight after one of the world's biggest ports operators decided to put on hold a decision to push more money into one of its projects here. Sky News understands it's because of critical comments from the Deputy Prime Minister and the Transport Secretary, who called one of DP World's subsidiaries, P&O, a rogue operator. The government is holding an investment summit next week, and Sir Keir Starmer today said it would be very, very good for the country. Our business correspondent Paul Kelso broke the story and has our report.
London Gateway handles almost 2 million containers a year, on course to become Britain's biggest port under plans for a £1 billion expansion by owners DP World. Precisely the sort of investment the country needs, and the government hoped to announce at a summit on Monday. But that has now been pulled after a row over DP World's subsidiary P&O Ferries.
Seize their ships!
Transport Secretary Louise Haigh was among the first to protest at P&O's sacking of seafarers 2 years ago. Now in government announcing new legislation, she called them out, describing P&O as a rogue employer, while Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner called them outrageous. The company's response: to put the investment on ice.
Growing the economy is the #1 mission of this government.
Embarrassing for a Prime Minister, talking up his summit.
In the last, 4 weeks, we've had at least 5 or 6 huge investments in the UK, including £24 billion today. We've got a massive investment budget summit coming up on Monday, where leading investors from across the globe are all coming to the UK. This is very, very good for the country.
It's another wobble for a government struggling to set a steady course.
This is a real blow and embarrassment to the government ahead of their flagship summit at a time when they should be doing everything they can to help the economy, attract international investors here, to be bad-mouthing a firm that's based here, that's seeking to invest and expand. And on the back of the anti-business, pro-trade union legislation we've seen this week, it's a real blow.
Hundreds of investors controlling billions of dollars will be here in the City of London on Monday as the government tries to drum up the money it needs to deliver its plans for Britain's infrastructure and economic growth. This row with DP World is a reminder that that sometimes requires compromise. Politically and practically, Sir Keir Starmer needs it to work.
We do need foreign investors to buy our debt, our bonds that we sell, and also potentially to buy investments in the UK to allow us to run those deficits. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is also that domestic business investment has been quite flat, as we know, for the past 6 or 7 years since the EU referendum.
Almost 100 days in, the government badly needs to find calmer waters. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Well, our political correspondent Ali Fortescue is in Downing Street for us tonight. And Ali, the words of 2 cabinet ministers may have cost the country much investment money, up to £1 billion. Do they have the backing of the Prime Minister tonight?
Well, Gillian, we've had a very interesting response from Downing Street tonight, because a Downing Street source has told me that the Transport Secretary's views on boycotting P&O do not reflect the government views. So this is a Prime Minister in a choice between a big company that's investing and his own cabinet minister is choosing that big company, effectively sort of throwing Louise Haigh under the bus. It really shows that there seem to be divisions on this, on how to approach business right at the top of government. That is the fascinating politics that seems to be happening behind the scenes. And then, as you've been hearing, you've got the kind of broader issue that this investment summit on Monday was really being talked up as a moment that Labour were going to show they're the party of business. They are bringing investors in. They are pushing for growth, something they pledged to do during the election campaign. And instead, you have a £1 billion investment being pulled just a few days before because of something a cabinet minister has said. That is undoubtedly embarrassing for the Prime Minister. This is a Prime Minister trying to reset in Scotland today, talking about Council of Nations and Regions. Instead, he's facing uncomfortable questions about this, another distraction. And it is 100 days tomorrow, Gillian, since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister.
Yes, not perhaps how we'd like to mark it. Ali, thank you very much for the moment. Virginia McCulloch told police to cheer up. You've caught the bad guy when they arrested her. It followed her calmly telling them where the bodies of the parents she had murdered were hidden in their family home. She'd spent nearly £150,000 of their money in the meantime and was today jailed for life. Sky's Siobhan Freeman-Powell reports from court, and a warning: her report contains details some viewers may find distressing.
My dad's body's in there.
The moment the hidden bodies of Virginia McCulloch's parents were finally found. McCulloch had been living with the remains of John and Lois for more than 4 years. To kill her father, she had poisoned his drinks with prescribed medication on a night in June 2019.
When I went in the morning, early hours, I got up about half an hour early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Came in and he was gone.
The next morning, she targeted her mother, telling police how Lois had stared at her daughter in disbelief before she was beaten with a hammer and stabbed 8 times.
Where we find your mum?
OK, so upstairs there were about 5 wardrobes.
The years of lies Virginia had told to family and friends were only unravelled after a GP raised the alarm.
You're under arrest on suspicion of murder against Jonathan McCulloch and Lois McCulloch, OK?
In September 2023, she was arrested.
She is an intelligent manipulator who chose to kill her parents callously without a thought for them or those who continue to suffer as a result of their loss.
In court, McCulloch sobbed as details of her crimes were laid bare and kept her head down as her siblings spoke of their hatred. When sentencing Virginia McCulloch here at Chelmsford Crown Court, Mr Justice Johnson said she had lied to and stolen from her parents in the lead up to their deaths, saying this proved that Virginia McCulloch killed her parents for financial gain. This was before he added that both John and Lois should have felt safe in their own home and safe in their own beds, and were also entitled to feel safe around their own daughter. But instead, Virginia is accused of taking her parents' lives and robbing them of their dignity in death. She had built a tomb for her dad on the ground floor of their property and stuffed her mum's body inside a wardrobe.
Cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy.
She benefited from around £150,000 of her parents' cash. She was told by the judge she had put money before humanity and was sentenced to 36 years in prison.
I deserve to obviously get whatever's coming sentence-wise, because that's the right thing to do. And that might give me a bit of peace.
Siobhan Freeman-Powell, Sky News, Chelmsford.
One of Mohammed Al-Fayed's alleged victims has told Sky News the investigation into the claims against him should be international. Christina Svensson says she was assaulted by the former Harrods boss in Paris. Today, the Metropolitan Police revealed they are investigating 40 new allegations, including rape. Sky's Sadia Chowdhury has our report, and a warning: it contains distressing descriptions of sexual assault.
In the late 1990s, Christina worked at the Paris Ritz Hotel. She was an executive assistant to its then owner, Mohammed Al-Fayed. He constantly abused her, she claims.
I put this cheek forward and he slid his mouth over to mine and stuck his tongue in. And I was so shocked, and so I jerked my head violently to the side, and his tongue like ended up in my ear. He would then start reaching out and grabbing my breasts, you know, even with his fingers very hard, and then twisting them or going beep, beep.
Christina's allegations come as the Metropolitan Police widened its investigation into Al-Fayed. The former Harrods boss owned multiple businesses across the world. It's now believed that during his lifetime, Al-Fayed was a sexual predator, assaulting and raping possibly hundreds of women. Now, 40 new victim survivors and 40 new allegations. These include rape and sexual assault and are believed to have occurred between 1979 and 2013. The Met says it's received numerous bits of information. The force said they're predominantly to do with Al-Fayed, but some relate to the actions of others. Christina warns the UK's largest police force that it may be looking at just a small part of a global network of abuse.
A man like Al-Fayed, who had literally an obsession with abusing women sexually, he doesn't just turn it off when he goes to another country. You can put enough fluff around it and whatever you want, but he was hiring vulnerable women and using coercive control, himself and his entourage, to traffic these women, period. That's it. There's nothing else to be said.
But there is. The Met says it's now contacting other organisations with links to Al-Fayed, so anyone else who's been a victim can speak out. Harrods says it's working to settle claims of historic sexual abuse. It apologised to victims who it says were failed. The Ritz Paris told Sky News, "We are deeply troubled by the recent testimonies regarding the late Mohammed Al-Fayed." And they said, "We are determined to shed light on these allegations in line with our commitment to transparency towards our guests and employees." Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News.
Good evening from Beirut. Both the UK and the United States joined the criticism of Israel tonight over attacks on United Nations peacekeepers inside Lebanon. Downing Street said they were appalled. President Biden said he was asking Israel to stop. The people here would echo that sentiment after airstrikes which targeted parts of this city previously relatively untouched. Last night, 22 people were killed and dozens left injured in the heart of this capital city. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah, but the areas attacked are outside the group's stronghold in southern Beirut, instead hitting the more central suburbs of Basta and Ras El Naba. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports now from the site of the Israeli strike.
The Israeli airstrikes came without warning, smashing into apartment blocks in central Beirut. Rescue workers urge people to get back as other buildings may be about to collapse. This area was packed with people at the time. The Habush family make their way across the rubble with their suitcases covered in dust, their home destroyed. They still cannot believe what's happened.
I was coming back home and I saw the strike in front of me. Everything was collapsing. She was with our children inside. We took them and ran away. There was fire all over the place and I couldn't handle it.
I saw people dying in front of me. There were dead bodies and the rescuers were moving them on stretchers in front of us. My kids saw this.
Everyone in this area is frightened, fearful of when there will be another strike.
This was a safe area, but it's not safe anymore. It's all civilians and displaced people who ran away from the war, but the war came after them.
It is reported a Hezbollah leader was the target, but people here say this was just an ordinary residential area.
There is a lot of panic and nervousness here. We can hear an Israeli drone above us. It is pretty much constant, and where we're standing, this was one of the residential buildings that was struck by the Israeli airstrike. You can see search and rescue teams. They're still looking for people trapped underneath the rubble, but the chance of finding any survivors is remote. But people are really, really worried because until now, this area was considered to be relatively safe.
And in the south of the country, fighting between Hezbollah and Israel is intensifying. There's been no let-up. And in the middle, UN peacekeepers who say they've been deliberately targeted by the Israeli military, injuring members of the force. Actions that have been condemned.
Well, at least one attack that was deliberate against our position and against our cameras. But also the other attacks were pretty precise. So this is important also to remind the parties of their responsibility to an obligation to respect the security and safety of our troops.
It is clear this war is expanding, and it is civilians on both sides that are paying the price. So much has been destroyed here, lives wrecked by a war that shows no sign of ending. More than 1 million Lebanese have now been displaced by this conflict. People are exhausted and they do not know where to turn. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Beirut.
Well, our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle is in Jerusalem tonight. And Alistair, Israel has become used to criticism, of course, during the invasions of Gaza and Lebanon. But the breadth of the disquiet over these attacks on the peacekeepers is something new.
Yeah, as Alex explained in his report there, yesterday 2 UN peacekeepers were injured in an Israeli attack that hit the base where they are in southern Lebanon. And then today, another 2 UN peacekeepers were injured in another attack. They weren't seriously injured, I think that's important to say, but damage was done also to the base. Now, the French, the Italians and the Spanish have released a statement in the last few hours condemning this and supporting the right of UN peacekeepers to be in southern Lebanon. Those 3 countries are important because they do provide a lot of peacekeepers to the mission, some of them currently there. The Irish also have peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, the Indonesians too. I think it's 2 Indonesians who were injured in today's incident. The Israeli military has advised the UN peacekeeping force to pull back by a number of kilometres for their own safety. The UN have refused to do that, saying it is right and their right to remain where they are. They have remained in their bases. They're not conducting patrols, but they are in the area of Israeli operations. The French President Emmanuel Macron today doubled down on his calls for an arms embargo against Israel, comments echoed by the Spanish Prime Minister as well, Pedro Sanchez. They believe it is the best and possibly the only way to achieve a ceasefire in Lebanon and in Gaza. And the French also have a long historical relationship with Lebanon, so they are quite important here. For UN peacekeepers to be hit once could be an accident. The IDF says it is investigating. For it to happen twice, the United Nations are accusing them of doing it deliberately.
Yeah, OK, Alistair, thanks very much indeed. And you can find out more about the events in the Middle East and beyond as Sky News and NBC News join forces for a new podcast, The World, with Richard Engel and Yalda Hakim. Scan the QR code on screen now to start downloading it. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Mark, thank you. Hurricane Milton may have moved on from Florida, but the clean-up for many is only just beginning. The huge storm has left a trail of devastation in its wake, particularly in Siesta Key, where it made landfall, and in the city of Tampa. This was the Tropicana Field Stadium in the city St. Petersburg before Milton hit. And this satellite image shows Milton's impact, the roof of the stadium ripped apart. Here's the town of Clearwater earlier this summer. a town which faces severe flooding today in the wake of the hurricane. Our US correspondent James Matthews sent this report from Tampa, Florida.
Florida is still drying out. Search, rescue and recovery continues amidst the cleanup. In a hurricane, devastation comes on a sliding scale. The Sunshine State might have escaped the catastrophe it feared, but it's not good.
It's depressing, but you got to fight on. I mean, a lot more people have it worse than us. We could be over in Israel dealing with all that, and that's just terrifying.
It's a beautiful area to live in Florida, but when you got to be stressed like this, it's trying times.
Yeah, it's stressful. Yeah, it's the highest winds I've ever seen in my life, so it's a bit frightening.
This is the cleanup after the cleanup before. It's natural disaster as routine, even if Hurricane Milton was anything but.
It's been a nightmare.
Carol Ann Bradley is from London originally, but lives in Sarasota. The night Milton came knocking, it was all about strength and saving the house.
Our front door, because it's never come in that way before with a storm, so it wasn't a storm door. So Melissa and I had to stand there for 3 hours with sandbags holding the door in until the last bit went away, because it was literally coming into the hallway.
Hurricane Milton might have blown its last, but the same doesn't apply to its politics. As Florida turned its attention to the cleanup, President Biden addressed Donald Trump and the spread of misinformation.
Again, let me say that the misinformation out there is not only just disgusting, but it's dangerous. It's misleading. People desperately want hope. Tell me it's going to be okay. Tell me it's going to be okay. And they're in real trouble, a lot of them. And to hear this malarkey you're hearing from some of the people, I want to get into it, but I lose my temper.
The financial cost of this will be huge. The Fitch Ratings Agency estimates $50 billion in insured losses. And that's for people with insurance. Given the history of hurricanes in this state, for many, it's simply unaffordable.
In a beautiful part of the world, it's the financial hit that comes with the territory, the part of paradise lost. James Matthews, Sky News, in Tampa, Florida.
The BBC presenter Jay Blades has denied charges of engaging in controlling or coercive behaviour towards his wife. The 54-year-old, who fronts primetime show The Repair Shop, pleaded not guilty at Worcester Crown Court. At least 20 people have been killed and 7 others injured in an attack on a mine in Pakistan. A group of armed men opened fire at a small private coal mine in the southwestern province of Balochistan. The Baloch Liberation Army, one of several insurgent groups battling the government, has claimed responsibility. And no more golf for Donald Trump. Since the assassination attempt near his golf course in September, the former president hasn't hit the golf course, and a source close to the Trump campaign told NBC News he won't be doing so until after the election. Federal agents have allegedly informed the Republican candidate they can't guarantee his safety while he's on the course. Ian Harrison was first filmed by our cameras back in 2008. He was then 19, begging for money on the streets of central London. He is still homeless 16 years on. The new Labour government is promising to set up a team of experts to tackle homelessness. And our home editor, Jason Farrell, met Ian to see what needs to be done.
Spare a little change, please. Spare a little change, please.
A year ago, on the streets, addicted to heroin and crack, a downward spiral left Ian hospitalised. That crisis got him on methadone and into a hostel. But this comes with its own challenges.
If you're picking someone up and you're going to put them in a hostel with 26 other people that are all addicts, it's hard to be stable in a place like this because it's a very unstable place to be in. I don't know where I left it.
In a sense, he's off the streets, but they've come in with him. Without help with self-care and organisation, he fears the only route is back.
I've been going round in this circle now for like 20 odd years, and it's like get into a hospital, become homeless. get into a hostel, become homeless.
So let's wind back 16 years of Ian's life and through 6 prime ministers. Sleeping rough in England is generally rising. It peaked pre-pandemic, but the numbers fall as we wind back all the way to the Blair-Brown era, where a rough sleeping unit successfully reduced it by 2/3. But back then, things weren't much different for Ian.
Can you please spare a little change, please? Please spare a little change, please. No.
This footage, filmed by our producer who's known Ian since 2008, shows him aged 19. It's hard for 35-year-old Ian to watch. What would your advice be to that young man?
Get help. Get help.
Yeah.
18 years later, and look where I am. I'm no better off, really. I'm ready to try to get some sort of routine in life.
Blair's administration provided additional support for the issues that caused rough sleeping, and this Labour government is promising to replicate that. For Ian, no one's tackled the root causes, his mental health.
To get the therapy, you need to be completely clean off drugs and alcohol for a couple of years. But that's part of the illness.
Addiction and rough sleeping has been a way of life.
I want to be so far gone that so my problems have gone away, just for tonight.
To break the cycle, Ian says he needs the kind of help that has always eluded him. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
The Northern Lights were visible for a second time this year, as far south as southern England last night. It's a phenomenon normally associated with living closer to the Arctic Circle, but there could be more of it to come. It's because of what's known as the solar cycle, which is currently approaching its maximum, which happens every 11 years. Our correspondent Molly Malone explains more.
The sky has once again stunned us all, with Northern Lights visible here in the UK at such a scale for the second time this year. We saw those beautiful colours on display for so many to capture on our phones and our cameras, picking up those bright lights. But for all the pretty pictures, there is science behind it. These displays happen when very fast charged particles erupt from the sun, released in explosions called coronal mass ejections. They travel through space and collide with gases in the Earth's atmosphere around the magnetic poles. As they clash, light is emitted at various wavelengths, which is what creates those colourful displays. Different gases produce different colours. Oxygen creates the pinks and the green colours, nitrogen more the purples and the blues. But what used to be a once-in-a-lifetime event for people in the UK is starting to become much more common, and that's partly because the sun is reaching its maximum point in its 11-year solar cycle.
This is a natural cycle that the sun has of 11 years from what's known as solar minimum through solar maximum and back to solar minimum again. Now, solar minimum is when we see the fewest sunspots on the sun. Solar maximum is when we see the most. So it's an 11-year cycle from one solar minimum back to the other. Now, because space weather, because the geomagnetic storms, which are driven by the activity on the sun, typically originate from sunspots, it figures that the more sunspots that we see, the higher frequency of space weather events that we get. Now, it's estimated that we are around about the solar maximum of the sun's current 11-year cycle, which means that we've been seeing an increased frequency in space weather events.
Now, if you missed Thursday, there could be more to come for some of us. This forecast is predicting northern areas of the UK might be lucky with the lights through the weekend. And beyond that, September to March is the best season to spot aurora activity. From now through to 2026, scientists say we could remain in the peak solar maximum period. So keep those eyes peeled.
We'll get so used to seeing it, won't we? That was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by PR consultant Alex Dean and Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Times, about tonight's lead story here on Sky. Its headline, Investment Plan in Chaos as Minister Insults Firm. Do stay with us for more. We'll be right back.
we've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. P&O Ferries' parent company, DP World, has paused plans for £1 billion investment in the UK after critical comments from 2 cabinet ministers. A woman has been jailed for life after murdering both her parents and living with their bodies in the family home for 4 years. The Metropolitan Police have recorded 40 new allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed, including claims of rape and sexual assault. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with PR consultant Alex Dean and Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the row over £1 billion foreign investment in the UK being threatened after 2 cabinet members apparently insulted the firm is top story in the Times. The Telegraph says the row is an embarrassing blow to the Prime Minister's plans to grow the economy. But Zoe's paper, The Guardian, says the PM is determined that his critics won't blow him off course. The Eye leads with an investigation revealing that a gang linked to the Kremlin has hacked the UK ambulance computer system. It follows a warning on Tuesday from MI5 that Russian agents are working to cause mayhem on the streets of Britain. The Express has been speaking to a 13-year-old girl sentenced for violent disorder after an attack on a hotel housing asylum seekers. She tells the paper she made a mistake but doesn't deserve a criminal record. The Mail claims an exclusive with King Charles telling Republican campaigners in Australia that he won't stand in the way if the country decides to ditch him as head of state. While the Mirror speaks to Sir Elton John, who tells the paper he doesn't know how much time he has left after poor health, family commitments and a lifetime of touring. The Financial Times says growing confidence in the US economy has boosted the profits of some of the world's biggest financial groups, with several top names reporting better than expected results. The Sun reports that hidden cameras were installed in Manchester United's dressing room 2 days before their Premier League match at Aston Villa in an apparent security breach. And finally, The Star says that a Canadian diver claims that he saw the King, then Prince Charles, piloting a UFO in Nova Scotia in 1975. We haven't checked with the King about his whereabouts on that particular date, but perhaps we might. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us.
The King was in Pizza Express in Woking at the time.
Welcome to Alex and Zoe. I'm sorry, I've got the giggles now. Needless to say, we're not going to be covering that story. Let's have a look at the FT and this story of the economy, investment, a bit of a misstep, it seems, by the government in terms of wanting to encourage foreign investment. Explain what has happened, Alex.
Not the first time that P&O Ferries has been criticised for what it did a couple of years ago with fire and rehire. Indeed, the then government, the Conservatives, criticised them. The trouble for the government is the timing and the fierceness with which the Transport Secretary expressed her views about the company, whose parent company, DP World, is a major investor in the UK, not least at the London Gateway port, but also in Southampton. She not only said that the business were rogue operators and cowboys, using the kind of criticism that has been expressed by past governments, but most harmfully, I think, from their perspective, she said that she would boycott them and that other people should do the same. That's the Transport Secretary saying that you should boycott this business. Well, that business, which was going, I think, to be a participant in next week's International Investment Summit, there's some disputes. Some of the papers say their leader is still coming, some say he's not. Either way, they've announced that their investment in the UK is on pause.
And some of the papers detailing the fact that DP World are saying that they weren't going to invest that £1 billion, and it's not because of any row. That was a decision that they'd taken anyway.
Well, exactly, right. So there is a rumour that they'd taken the decision anyway, quite separate to the remarks. And there's also still people close to the matter saying the project is still going to go ahead.
Well.
And those are people close to the company. So I don't think... I mean, they're quite hard-boiled, these kind of corporations. I don't think they're going to huff off. I don't think they're going to flounce over a remark, especially one that was so widely made at the time when they first fired all those people. And I don't think it will be... We keep calling it a fire and rehire row, but actually a lot of the people they were going to hire were replacements of the people
they weren't rehired.
And they were hired on a much lower. They weren't even on British minimum wage. They were on... I think they were taking the vessels as some kind of separate principality. There was certainly...
They put it under a different flag. I don't remember the detail.
There were certainly employment practices which were absolutely scandalous and caused not just jobs, but the very standards that we expect of employers in this country. So I'm not surprised there's a question mark over their relationship going forward because, as I say, they're corporations. They're not thinking with their hearts. I'm not surprised that Louise Haigh said it, although I'm surprised by the timing. What I am surprised about is that the government has managed to get itself into this absolute fix where it was relying so heavily on DP World and yet didn't think ahead about whether or not to insult them, where number 10 Downing Street is on the one hand distancing itself from the Transport Secretary and on the other hand agreeing with her, why it can't actually make its own mind up. I mean, you know, obviously you needs must and you take investment where you can get it. But if there is actually a company that you're holding up as a flagship poor employer, they might not be the best people to go to for a really high-profile investment drive.
Or a flagship investor. And the reason I think it is a story is that you put your finger on it, is number 10 disowning the remarks of their own Transport Secretary. Government tends not to do that, or governments of any type, tend not to disown serving cabinet ministers, certainly 3 months into government, unless it's a real issue, because then you prompt whole new, do you have confidence in the cabinet minister and so forth? And if it was something they thought they could get away with, if it was thought something they could pass, they would just say, look, what's been said has been said. It's rather like what the last government said. Instead, Downing Street said Louise Hay's comments were her own personal view. They don't represent the view of the government. That is, a government minister's view doesn't represent the government's view. We continue to work closely with DP World, the business that she said you should boycott. I mean, those are really quite disparate and separate views.
But according to the FT, another Whitehall figure said a press release on the government's website on Wednesday had called P&O a rogue employer, and that had been obviously signed off.
That's what Zoe's saying.
It's
absolutely true. Their comms is a complete mess on this.
They are in disarray. And I don't get that. I mean, is it possible that they didn't make the connection between P&O Ferries and DP World?
Yeah, maybe. So I think the government has three issues here. If we step back, I think the government has three issues and they're all to do with timing. The first one is that they're going into this International Investment Summit before the budget. What government wants to do is therefore say, everything's fine, but I can't tell you any of the details. Ministers will be very careful, ministers always are, of any political stripe, not to reveal details of what's coming up in a budget. Businesses love detail, and they'll be frustrated by the absence of it when they go into the summit. The second issue comes from that, because businesses don't want to be photographed applauding enthusiastically when a couple of weeks later they may say, I completely disagree with what you've done here on this part or that part of the budget, and find themselves at variance with what they said a fortnight ago. And the third issue is of their own manifesto making, because the government pledged to have a workers' rights bill and an International Investment Summit within 100 days. They're coming right up on the buffer of that 100 days now, and they're doing both at once. And it's the fact that they're introducing their workers' rights bill which brought up these comments about DP World's P&O Ferries, what they regard good employment practice on the one hand, bad employment practice on the other. The reason they're having that discussion now, when they're meant to be having the discussion about investment, is because they're wedging these things together in their agenda in their first 100 days.
But just to reiterate that thought, that disinvestment was about to happen anyway. Dubai-based executives saying that Number 10 was wise to distance itself from Haigh's comments, but insisted DP World's decision was based on commercial realities rather than political barbs. If we turn to the Times, they're saying the investment plan is in chaos. Is that slightly overwritten, that headline, do you think, Zoe?
Well, the Times are really enjoying how difficult everything is for Labour, and I don't think this story is any different. Is it a humiliation? The Financial Times story just seems much fairer-minded. You know, just has more context. If DP World were thinking of stepping back anyway, then they're using this instrumentally, and it's not humiliating. It's just a thing that businesses do. So, I think the Times story is, well, falls short of their standards of impartiality in news gathering.
Oh, blimey, strong words.
Well, I mean, I just don't. It doesn't sound as though they do not sound like they've got the same 360 view that the FT has.
So the Times does champion a column in their own newspaper by Michael Bloomberg, former Mayor of New York, where he talks about he's never been more confident about the British economy, which is impliedly very flattering about the new government and the environment that it's setting up. He talks about the UK's best days still being ahead of it. That's on the front. But one of the things that is certainly online in the FT today, although not on the front page of tomorrow's edition, is that comment about being wise to distance themselves from Louise Haig's remarks, Number 10 being wise. The context of that in the full story online makes it clear that the people who say that to the FT are talking about other investors from the Middle East and elsewhere, because not just DP World, because businesses don't want to think that you're going to get, putting it in blunt terms, slagged off the week before or the week after you make a commitment to invest. And so government's not just thinking about the DP World investment here, they're thinking more broadly about the business environment. This is not the week to be taking pot shots at businesses.
The problem is, though, at some point, and I take your point that it's unfortunate to be doing employee rights in the same week as an investment drive, but at some point, you do have to say, we believe in this working practice, we believe in these workplace rights.
And one could be the most left-wing person in the world and say, I believe in doing this, let's do it straightforwardly, head-on, no shying away from it, we don't want your investment. Right? What you can't do is try and ride both horses. You've got to leave that to the circus. You can't be having a go at a business on Wednesday, Thursday, and singling them out and saying that's a rogue employer, we should boycott them, and then expect on Thursday, and then expecting an investment of £1 billion from them on Monday. Just not realistic, is it? Yeah,
the comms doesn't seem to be working in that instance at all. Let's turn to the Mirror and this horrific story, the double murder of the parents, Virginia McCullough, sentenced today. I mean, it just it beggars belief.
It beggars belief for so many reasons. The first is that when she seems to have been expecting the arrest, which in some ways is understandable because it was 4 years old, this crime. So she must have been half expecting a knock on the door for all of those years. But the way she talked about her mother and the murder of her mother to the police when they arrived, it's sort of chilling because she sounds as though she has great sympathy for her mother, and yet she killed her. So the phrasing is so strange. You know, she describes how she looked so innocent and had no idea what was coming. And it really is, I think that it's the kind of details of her own testimony, which is both at the same time kind of neutral, as though somebody else did this.
Yes.
And incredibly heartless.
Yeah. She's actually removed herself from the crime, as if, you know, she wasn't.
I don't know about that, actually. I mean, I prosecuted and defended plenty of cases where people were exactly as you describe. So they put something in the passive. They'd say, we were in the playground and there was a knife and he got stabbed, by which they mean I went to the playground, I took my knife and I stabbed him. They put everything in the passive. She didn't say that. She said, I murdered my father. He's over there. And my mother is in the second wardrobe upstairs. She lived in the house for 4 years. She's been sentenced now for the murder. There is, of course, a separate offence of interference with a body, which she could have been. I suppose in totality terms it wasn't going to make tuppence halfpenny of difference. But I actually think it's good to charge people with things like that too, because it demonstrates that there is something quite separately appalling and awful about the calculated way that you store a body, hide evidence, continue to claim the pension that is separate. I'm not justifying murder for a moment, but the act of killing somebody, which you should be sentenced for and get a life sentence for, that act, which can be in the spur of the moment, can be awful, but is separate from the ongoing, years-long determination to hide their body, lie to the relatives. She sent false notes and messages and gifts to people.
Yes, birthday cards.
She gave false explanations of where they were. And that, quite separately, is a horrible, horrible thing to have done.
It's really strange, isn't it? Because murder is obviously the moral atrocity, but somehow the detail of living with her mother's body in a wardrobe, living alongside it, and that being okay, is sort of worse.
It is. It's totally gruesome, completely. Zoe and Alex, thank you very much for the moment. We're going to take a break. Coming up, someone is hacking our ambulances. Are the Russians already starting to cause the mayhem that MI5 warned about? Do stay with us for more.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters. We love Trump! I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was the president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first. This conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want to jump in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, PR consultant Alex Dean and Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. Let's take a look at the Eye front page and this story about UK ambulances being hacked, suspected by Russian gangs linked to the Kremlin. Zoe, take us into this.
So the details are pretty scant, but it does look as though the Kremlin has successfully hacked into a public sector system, and that system is the ambulance service. You would think that if you were going to wreak chaos, you would choose a sector that was not already in chaos, because ambulance services are all, you know, how would you tell that somebody was hacking them? I would definitely go for air traffic control. Nevertheless, the MI5 has been warning that this is possible. The Ministry of Defence has been warning that this is likely, and now it does seem to be that it's been proven to have happened. I doubt we've heard the last of it.
Just to say that we have had a line in from the Cabinet Office, and they're saying that they don't recognise these claims. So it's kind of putting an end to this story.
Well, I don't know. I read a cyber expert say that there are two kinds of businesses in the UK: those that know they've been hacked and those that don't know that they've been hacked. But everyone's been targeted, and what this piece makes clear is that the Russians have at least sought to hack into the MOD, Whitehall departments, and into the NHS, including the ambulance service. I suppose there are two different kinds of hacking. One is to try and get intelligence, information, and reading, and so forth. The other is to cause chaos. And you would assume this is the latter. The point being, from these sorts of stories, there's a real threat to British emergency services posed by Russian intelligence operatives. And the fact that the Eye's story is sourced from people within the intelligence community here implies that there's actually... Downing Street may very well deny they don't recognise these things, but somebody within our intelligence apparatus is telling newspapers this is what's happening.
Well, this was... I mean, when Putin explicitly said, I think it was 6 weeks ago, that if the UK continued to support Ukraine in the way that we were intending to, there would be retaliation. This is what they were talking about, right? Yeah. Wasn't it? They were never.
And we have heard from the MI5, the head of MI5, saying that this is going to be happening on Britain's streets. A similar story, in a way, on the front of the Sun. Manchester United having their dressing rooms hacked into, I suppose, a bug planted. Is this with malicious intent, though? Do we know? I think it was a hacker, a common or garden hacker, rather than a Russian hacker, seeking to record Ten Hag's rallying speech, and potentially for a desire to leak it or just to listen in. Who knows? It's not quite on the same scale. No. We thought it was useful to see these bugging stories are everywhere today.
I mean, it's a prankster, right? But I don't understand. I mean, call me ignorant. I don't understand what's going to be so interesting in Ten Hag's rousing speech that you couldn't guess. Like, doesn't he just go, OK, let's go out there and win? I mean...
We don't know.
I can't believe you should be coaching in the Premier League.
You missed your call in, Zoe. Zoe and Alex, thank you very much for the moments. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, a major multinational company pauses plans for £1 billion investment in the UK after critical comments from 2 cabinet ministers.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on